There was this little town, no name worth knowing, just a wobbly sign dangling on a nail and dust that never quit swirling. The sun glared down like it was judging everyone, hot and harsh. Down the town's one twisty road came a girl, Unia, 26 years old, dragging her bare feet. She hadn't cried in 6 whole years. Her face had lines that made her seem older, but her eyes, they looked young, like she'd lost something innocent. She walked like pain was her old friend not fighting. It just used to it. Like how some people carry heavy buckets without spilling. She carried her hurts without wincing. The townsfolk noticed her. They always did. Her kind of beauty wild, hurt, out of place stuck out like a sore thumb. But nobody offered her drink. Nobody asked if she was okay. They just stared, whispered, and shooed their kids inside, like her shadow was bad news. Her dress was ripped at the bottom, muddy up to her knees, held together with a bent pin. Her hair, once dark as a smooth river rock, was tangled with dirt. One side of her face was bruised, swelling up fast. Her lip had split the night before, but the blood was dry now, leaving just a taste of metal and quiet. She came looking for a job, not pity. Told herself she didn't need kindness, just a floor to sweep, maybe a pile of hay to sleep on. But the guys at the saloon had other plans. They laughed when she said no, laughed louder when they pulled her into the alley. It wasn't about wanting her, it was about control, about breaking something soft just because they could. She didn't scream. That spooked them, maybe. She just stared, fierce and quiet, like a candle burning in a storm. One guy spat, called her cursed, said she looked like a witch. Then they hit her until her legs gave out and left her by the well like trash. That was at sunrise. Now it was almost sunset. She hadn't eaten or spoken. Her breath was shallow, one rib hurting sharp with every step. She got to a water trough and sank beside it, hands shaking as she scooped water to her mouth. It tasted like rust and nails, but she drank anyway. Behind her, doors closed, windows shut, voices mumbled. This town loved cruelty like it was a show, and staying quiet was how you survived. No laws, no kindness, just fences, whiskey, and loud men who lost fights and took it out on women. She curled up behind the barn, half hidden by some wobbly crates. Her hands gripped her knees, her breath shaky, and for the first time in 6 years, she cried. Not loud sobs, just soft tears that mixed with the dirt on her face and dripped onto the wood below. She tried to stop, but it was like a dam broke fast. Messy, unstoppable, a sound cut through the quiet. Not boots or laughter, but the slow steps of a man who didn't rush because he didn't need to. He stopped, his shadow stretching long, then moved again. She flinched, wiped her face fast, and grabbed a small, sharp rock. Then she saw him. He wasn't like the others, no swagger, no smirk. He just stood there, holding a ladle and a dented tin cup with steam rising from it like a prayer. His hat was old, pulled low. His coat was worn, faded by years and rain. His face didn't sneer. A scar ran from his ear to his chin, pale and straight, like a truth that never healed. His eyes were grayish-green, steady, like he saw more than he said. He held out the cup. She didn't budge. His voice was soft, careful, like he hadn't used it in a while. "You're safe now." She blinked. Those words didn't fit here, not after last night. He didn't say them again, just set the cup down beside her and stepped back, gentle, like she was a scared deer. She took the cup. Her hand shook too much to drink, but she held it. Warm broth, not whiskey, not poison, just something comforting. He took off his coat, old leather lined with wool, and set it beside her, not on her, not claiming her, just there if she wanted it. Then he started to walk away. "Wait," she croaked. He turned back. She licked her cracked lips, her throat, burning from more than bruises. "Why? Why help me?" His eyes glanced at her hands, still clutching the cup, and how she flinched from kindness like it might hit harder than fists. He paused, then said softly, like he was remembering, because someone should have. She couldn't answer her. Voice was lost between shame and amazement. He nodded once, then pointed to the edge of town. where hills rose and the sky felt big enough to forgive. "My place is there," he said. "If you want a safe spot." Another guy might have added, "Just for tonight, no strings." He didn't. He didn't need to. He walked on. She sat there, trembling. She could run the other way, head south, keep moving. But she didn't even know what day it was. Her feet bled, her ribs ached, and her heart? That hadn't stopped bleeding in years. She got up slowly, swallowed hard, took the coat, and followed him. She limped behind through the bushes and evening light. The sky turned purple and gray. Coyotes howled far off, and the first stars peeked out. She didn't know his name. He didn't ask hers. But when they reached his little cabin in the trees, she saw the porch light glowing, warm and golden, like a happy memory waiting to happen. She stopped on the step. He opened the door, said nothing, but something in his steady, quiet look, no hunger, no pity, made her feel almost safe. She stepped inside, and the door closed softly behind her, gentle as a breath. The fire in the fireplace crackled low. The warmth hugged her slow, and for the first time in forever, she didn't feel like something hunted. Not fixed, not whole, but maybe safe enough to start healing. The cabin smelled like cedar smoke and something warm cooking, maybe onions, rabbit, or beans turned sweet. Unia stepped in slowly, holding his coat tight around her. The walls were smooth pine, warmed by time and quiet days. A rocking chair swayed a little, like someone just left it. The fire's light made everything soft, almost safe. He didn't look at her when he came in, just hung his hat on a peg, added a log to the fire, and stirred a pot over the coals. His silence wasn't cold, just respectful, like he knew the difference between being there and being pushy. Unia didn't sit. Her fingers twitched, remembering rooms that turned mean fast, where warmth was a trick and kindness had strings. She stood by the door, tense. He noticed but didn't stare. "You can leave the door open if you want," he said gently. She glanced back. The door was cracked, letting in cool night air like a warning. "I'm not locking it," he added. "A door's not supposed to trap you." She hesitated, then slowly pushed it shut, but didn't lock it. She sat on a bench by the fire, close enough to feel warm, but far enough to feel free. He scooped stew into a tin bowl, set it on the table, and stepped back without a word. His eyes flicked to her face, then away quick, like he didn't want to make her feel watched. Unia moved slowly. Her stomach growled loud, but she kept her moves small, unsure. She tasted the stew salt, herbs, something soft that almost made her cry. She didn't thank him. He didn't expect her to. When she finished, he took the bowl quietly and poured her a mug of weak tea. They didn't talk much that night. He told her his name Ransom. Just that. No big story. No questions back. She said her name later, after he dozed off in the rocker by the fire. "Unia," she whispered, so soft it was just for her. The word hung like smoke. He didn't move, but she swore he smiled in his sleep. She slept curled by the fire on a blanket he'd set out without making a fuss. By morning, she realized the floor was warm. The fire hadn't gone out all night. Dawn came gentle. A rooster crowed somewhere. Coffee bubbled in an old pot. She opened her eyes, expecting to be alone, but there he was outside, chopping wood, in a steady rhythm. His sleeves were rolled up, showing arms strong from work, not showing off. The axe moved like it was part of him, no grunting, just focus. She watched him before getting up. Her body hurt, but her face wasn't as swollen. She found a basin of water and a cloth on the table, plus a small tin of soap, half used. She stared, then scrubbed her face until it stung and her eyes watered. When she stepped outside, still barefoot, he looked up but didn't talk, just nodded to a stump and handed her a peeled apple. She took it without touching his fingers, sat on the porch, and ate slowly, watching the hills glow blue and gold in the morning. He spoke first. "Where were you going?" She didn't answer right away, not because she didn't want to, but because she wasn't sure. "Somewhere people aren't mean," she said finally. He nodded like that made sense. "Those places are hard to find," he said softly. She glanced at him. "You think this one's different?" "No," he said, "just quieter." He gave her a pair of boots too big but sturdy. He didn't mention her cut-up feet. She put them on without saying thanks. But her eyes followed him now, curious. They fell into a rhythm, not routine, but soft, like two people tiptoeing around each other, unsure if this was safe or just a pause before more hurt. She helped where she could, picking up sticks, carrying water. At first, every move hurt, but her bruises faded. Her hands started feeling useful again. One night, she noticed an old saddle by the fire, not fancy, just close. She touched it, and he looked over. "My father's," he said. He said, "A saddle shows who a man is." She traced the worn leather. "What's it say about you?" He shrugged and looked out the window. "But I'm still here, I guess." Days passed, then a week. The silence between them got heavy, not tense, but full. She didn't ask what he'd lost. He didn't ask who'd hurt her. The past hung there like smoke you could see, but not touch. But one night, the smoke shifted. She woke gasping, hands clawing her blanket, breath ragged. In her dream, the saloon guys came back, laughter turned to fists. She sat up, heart pounding. A shadow moved. By the fire, he was already there, crouching low. "I didn't touch you," he said softly. "You were dreaming." She tried to breathe, blinking hard. "You're safe," he said again. She hugged herself. "You say that like it's easy." "I don't say much easy," he replied. They sat quiet for a long time. "I used to think being safe meant nobody seeing you," she whispered. "But being invisible just lets people hurt you without caring." He nodded. "Being seen is harder, but better." She really looked at him, then the scar, his hands, how he didn't feel quiet with noise. "You've been hurt too," she said. He didn't flinch. "Some. Why aren't you mean like them?" He thought about it, because it never helped. He said finally. The fire crackled. Then she asked what had been stuck in her mind. "Are you waiting for me to pay you back?" He looked at her, eyes hard to read. "I'm waiting for you to feel like you don't owe me." Unia looked away, throat tight. "You're the only man who hasn't tried to take something. Maybe I don't see you as something to take." She didn't cry, but something inside her broke open. Not pain, not fear, just the ache of being seen without shame. That night, she didn't curl up tight. She lay flat, arms relaxed, like the floor might hold her without hurting. As she drifted off, she heard the rocker creak and a low, rough voice humming an old song she thought she'd forgotten. She didn't dream of fists that night, only horses and flowers by a creek. Winter eased up slowly, like an old hand letting go of pain. Snow stuck to the shady pines, but the creek started to bubble under its ice. Unia stood on the porch, wrapped in a borrowed shawl, watching steam rise from the barn roof where the sun hit. Her breath puffed in the cold, but it didn't bite like before. The quiet here wasn't empty anymore. It felt full, safe, almost. Like home. Inside, Ransom stirred a pot with one hand and sketched with the other horses. Hills, sometimes a tree. She didn't ask about it, but she watched when he thought she wasn't looking. His lines were strong but careful, like him. That morning, he caught her watching. "You ever ride?" he asked. Her lips parted, surprised. She had, years ago, helping with mules, back when her hands were tough and her heart hopeful. "I did," she said, voice soft with memory. He nodded. "Could ride today if you feel up to it." She paused. Her body was healing, but her spirit was slower. Still, the idea of moving, feeling the wind, not being trapped in her own skin, it pulled her. "I'll try." They saddled two horses, a gentle gelding for him, a small Mari for her, calm and steady. He let her take her time, checking the saddle, the hooves. No rush, no hovering. They rode through a meadow, quiet except for snow crunching and horse breaths. Unia's hands were steady, but her thoughts flew everywhere. She glanced at him. Ransom rode like he was part of the horse, hat low, eyes on the trees. She felt, watched, but not trapped. Seen, not judged on. They stopped by the creek, where tiny purple flowers poked through the snow. She got off slowly, legs wobbly. He didn't try to help, just waited, trusted. She knelt by the flowers, touching them like they might vanish. He crouched nearby, quiet. "They grow here every spring. he said softly. She nodded. A long silence fell. Then she asked what she hadn't dared before. Why didn't you leave this place? Most guys would. He didn't answer right away. Because quiet doesn't scare me. Losing the good in me does. She looked at him, brow creased. You think you lost it once? I know I did. She didn't push. She knew the look of someone who'd buried something too precious to dig up. Back at the cabin, Unia made stew without being asked, slicing onions, adding herbs. Ransom watched from the door, not crowding, just there. He lit a lantern as night fell, its glow warming the room. She brought bowls over and sat beside him for the first time. After, she stayed by the fire. He sketched, pencil looping steadily. She leaned over. That's not a horse, she said, pointing to a figure with messy hair by a pine tree. His eyes met hers. No, that's you. Her breath stopped. You've been drawing me? He nodded. Only when I need to remember. What strength looks like. She stared at the sketch, not delicate, but solid, like someone who'd survived a storm and still reached for the sun. A knock broke the moment. Unia froze. Ransom stood slowly, tired. He opened the door a crack. Outside was a man from Townlow, with a mean jaw and tobacco-stained teeth. He'd watched when she was dragged across the saloon. Evening, Lowe said, smirking. Heard you got a girl here. Thought she might want to come back. No hard feelings. Unia's blood turned cold. Ransom stepped outside, shutting the door. She crept to the window, couldn't hear, but saw. Ransom stood tall, still. Lowe sneered, then paled when Ransom stepped closer. A few words, then Lowe spat into the snow and left. Ransom came back, shaking off the cold. What did you say? Unia asked, voice tight. He met her eyes. I said if he looks at you again, I'd dig a hole deep enough to forget him in. She swallowed. Would you? His voice was low. Yes. Something bloomed between them. Not silence, but space, like something precious had been set down. Gently. That night, she didn't sleep by the fire. She sat with him on the porch, watching stars through the trees. Her hand found his, not fast, but trusting. He didn't flinch or grip tight, just let her hold on. An owl hooted. Ransom looked at her, eyes dark. You don't owe me anything, Unia. She nodded. I know. She looked at their hands. But maybe I want to give you something anyway. His breath paused. Like what? I don't know yet, she whispered. But maybe something that matters. The words hung, trembling. She leaned her head on his shoulder, and for the first time, the world didn't feel like it was waiting to take from her. It felt like it might give something back. In that quiet night, with stars above and their hurts healing, Unia wondered if love wasn't a big fire, but a small seed, growing slow in quiet ground, waiting to bloom. Spring came slow that year, dragging through March like a kid not ready to say goodbye. Snow dripped from the roof, soft as prayers. Unia started leaving the door open during the day, letting the breeze play with the curtains and sunlight spill across the floor. The air smelled like wet pine and new beginnings. She swept a lot, not because the place was dirty, but because she liked the rhythm. It gave her hands something honest to do, not about fighting or surviving. Sometimes Ransom watched from the porch, a tiny smile tugging his lips, not saying anything. He didn't talk more than before, but she learned his silences were like invitations. One morning, she found a bundle of soft blue cloth by her basin. No note, just smelling of soap and cedar. She held it to her cheek and smiled. That night, she wore it. Ransom didn't say anything, just looked a moment too long and nodded. Then he offered her a spoonful of stew and went back to carving. She knew what he was making, not because he said, but because she saw his hands move slower, more careful. He'd gone to town 3 times that week, bringing back wood, bits of silver, a strip of red leather. She didn't ask, just watched, but she felt it in her heart, and the quiet looks they shared. One afternoon, with the sun low and golden, he asked her to walk with him. They didn't go far, just past the creek where purple flowers grew thick, like secrets by the trees. He carried something in his pocket, but didn't say what. They stood in a clearing, birds singing, air smelling of moss and melted snow. Ransom took off his hat. "I never thought I'd ask this," he said, voice soft as the wind. "But if I don't now, I'll regret it every spring." Her breath caught. He pulled out a small ring, simple, silver and bone, smooth as a river. "Rock, I don't have much," he said. "You don't owe me a yes. But I'd like to give you a name that doesn't carry shame. A place that's yours. A life we can build together." Unia stared, the world tilting, not with fear but wonder. Nobody had asked her anything without a threat. Nobody offered a future, only escape or ownership. But here was this man, trembling with a tiny ring like it held the sun. She couldn't speak. Tears came before words. She tried to say yes, but choked, so she nodded fast and whispered, "Yes," like a promise. Then she cried. Ransom stepped close, arms gentle as branches. He didn't shush her or fix her tears, just held her, let her cry for all the years. Nobody had held her pain. The next day, a neighbor lady brought lace and strong tea. Didn't comment on Unia's dress, just pinched her cheeks and said, "Eat. Weddings are better when you don't faint." The wedding wasn't fancy, no preacher, no bells, just the porch. A clean shirt, the neighbor watching, and spring air soft as a sigh. Unia braided her hair. No mirror, no fuss. She didn't wear shoes. Ransom stood tall, hands rough but clean, eyes steady. He said his vows like laying bricks, careful forever. She said hers like a girl learning to hope again. When it was over, the neighbor gave them sweet bread and wiped her eyes. The dog barked once, and the valley seemed to hush, like it was in awe. They sat on the porch that night, sharing silence and stew. Unia leaned on his shoulder, watching the sky turn from pink to deep blue. Thunder rumbled far off. Rain came fast, pounding the roof like a song. She stepped into it, barefoot, letting the earth hug her. Rain soaked her dress, her hair, her face. She laughed, bright and wild, spinning in the yard, face to the sky. Ransom watched from under the roof. She turned, glowing, and held out her hand. He paused, then stepped into the rain. They met halfway, no words, just breaths, just hearts. The rain washing away what pain couldn't kill. She kissed him first, slow and shaky, like spring meeting snow. He kissed her back, gentle, like she might disappear. But she didn't. She stayed. The sky lit up with lightning. Coyotes howled far away. But here, on this muddy patch of earth, Unia and Ransom held each other like a safe place. They danced, rain-soaked and barefoot, long after the storm softened. The fire inside was out, but they didn't care. They were their own warmth, their own morning. And as the night closed in, the cabin glowed soft and golden, like something worth protecting, something they'd earned. So, where are you reading this from? Tell me your city or country in the comments. I love knowing how far these stories go. If Unia's tale sparked something in you, if you've ever wanted a love that grows slow and stays true, drop a word for her or for the quiet guy who offers his heart like a home. If these stories feel like coming home, like mercy in a storm, give a like, comment, or subscribe. More stories are coming, always more. And somewhere out there, maybe tonight, another story is waiting.